terrible, terrible bills in the pipeline right now is called Cap and Trade. This bill is predicated on the idea that carbon dioxide is some type of evil chemical. Carbon dioxide is what you exhale and what plants take in and to emit oxygen. So I guess this bill is going to regulate life at its basic core. And our next speaker, who is a distinguished author and is a senior fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute, please welcome Chris Horner.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to begin with what I think is the example I would choose if anyone asked, what would you expect the Founding Fathers to weep openly about if they came back and saw what we're doing with their wonderful creation today? My example is the global warming issue, which is the vehicle for the greatest threat to our individual and economic liberties that we face today, whether or not most of us know it. Now, it wasn't always this way. Climate changes, it always has, it always will. And Mr. Jefferson wrote about global warming. He wrote about correspondence from his friends in Italy telling him of a warming on the continent at a rate of 1 degree per century by Mr. Fahrenheit's thermometer, in his words. And in his notes on the state of Virginia, he detailed how the rivers rarely freeze over now when they used to, and the elderly tell me that the earth used to be covered by snow 3 months out of every year. Now, his credit, his peers' credit, they did not run around saying things like, at this rate, or this would be a wonderful excuse, nay, it's now necessary for us to just temporarily suspend certain individual and economic liberties in the name of climate protection, which of course man does not drive. Now, however, we are facing international agreements, what are called binding international agreements, the Kyoto 2 protocol being negotiated in Copenhagen now, to be agreed in Mexico next November 8th, 6 days after our election, exempting Mexico to send what's left of our manufacturing base to Mexico. This should make for a wonderful political discussion next year. So it was not always this way. This is how it is. We now have an administration openly threatening the oldest form of window insurance, essentially tapping the cage and saying, you better pay me to protect you from my lunatic friend EPA here. It'd be a shame if they got out of the cage. You need to sue for peace with Congress and agree to legislation that would provide you certainty. Otherwise, we'll sick EPA on you regulating plant food. Well, this certainty in the legislation, we have two bills. One passed the House with the help of our young Congressman, Mr. Perriello, who on 1070 AM said he voted for this because we're hemorrhaging jobs to India and China because they've already done it. Well, he voted aye to pass this bill by 8 votes as members slunk out for their recess. Mr. Waxman outraged that it was being read on the floor because some members might miss their flights. It's 1,300 pages long, and the Senate version is 800 pages long, and yet somehow they have a provision identical to both. And it's called Section 707 in the Senate bill. And what it says is all laws on the books shall, just in case we have a non-radical executive, shall be implemented as carbon dioxide and greenhouse gas suppression instruments. That's Department of Agriculture, Department of Interior permitting for resource pursuit, the tax code, the Endangered Species Act, no more clutter in the courts about whether or not that's a polar bear statute, the National Environmental Policy Act, all of them shall, are now, by Congress's intent, global warming laws. That's certainty. So, this is also an issue of other sorts of intimidation, and I've written about this. I and 2 colleagues represented what are called skeptic scientists. All scientists used to be called skeptics, but now skeptic scientists as a slur, in the Supreme Court's Massachusetts case, in which, in a 5-4 opinion, and we know how the other team feels about 5-4 opinions, 5-4 opinion in which carbon dioxide was selected, not elected, to possibly be a pollutant. And in recruiting scientists to get on the brief, we were told by more than one academic, but this is a quote from one, "You must be kidding me. I'm up for tenure." So precisely what Jim was speaking about earlier, this is the sort of intimidation. I moved out here after Greenpeace was taking my trash every week. I had Mr. Soros funding big film cameras to chase me around. I had this guy coming, and we moved down here, and I began using the university's television studio until one morning a Fox host said, "Coming to us from Charlottesville." And then for a year, the university immediately, though, were always unavailable. And they make a pretty good fee every time I use their uplink, but for 1 year they denied me access to their television studios, and I had to go to Richmond until I wrote about it on National Review a few times, and they called and said, "I swear nobody called us and you can now use our studio again." So we've got all sorts of attempts to suppress speech. There's only one thing we can't afford when it comes to global warming, only one thing too expensive: debate. we must act now, and so on. No time for this. Well, there's academic suppression, there's suppression of thought, suppression of science, suppression of speech. Soon to be suppression of your individual and economic liberties if we don't push back. But as I indicated, the Mexico-Kyoto 2 negotiation makes this the issue, if you choose it to be the issue next year. 2010 can be the global warming issue, the Kyoto election, if you wish. Every member of Congress or candidate for Congress or the Senate now should be asked, will you or won't you? Will you vote to say EPA shall not do this to you unless Congress specifically, expressly grants EPA the authority? And yesterday, Senator Lisa Murkowski, of all people, went to the Senate floor and said she's introducing that resolution of disapproval in the Senate. We're going to work for that in the House as well. And we can vote this down if EPA tries, and we'll let the world's most deliberative body actually deliberate over what is the biggest tax increase in American history and the biggest regulatory intervention at the same time. Thank you very much.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the Bill of Rights acclamation today. We are going to have a reception at Miller's, which is down here on the far west end of the downtown mall, directly following the event. And also, we have some Bill of Rights pamphlets, which everyone should come up and grab on your way down to the reception. We have to leave for our posterity an America that is more free than the one we inherited. And our charge as we leave here is to respect the Bill of Rights and to spread the word of the Bill of Rights and of freedom. Thank you very much.